Hey everyone, welcome back to School BBQ. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing some raw beef, which is great for like an entree or anything like that if you got some mates coming over. We are going to be using the School BBQ Square Cow Good Cow beef rub. I've got a good story about the Square Cow Good Cow and where it came from, which I'll tell one day. But we're going to get straight into it. So we're just going to do the beef tartare. We're going to render out some beef fat. We're going to chop that up nice and crispy. Make some egg yolk pate. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So here I've got a piece of sirloin. So when we're doing tartare, I like to use cuts that aren't beef fillet because to me that's a little bit boring. Rump cap's a really good cut to use, especially if you're going to be utilising the fat. But I like to use this. This is the butt end of a sirloin, or what we would call like the mouse ear end, where you're going to get this line of sinew going through. It's not so good for steaks, but it's really, really good if you're going to do a bit of work to it and use it for something else. So all we're going to do is rip the fat off, make sure we take that sinew out. We're going to dice it up, we're going to mix it with some of these tasty bits, and that's that. So all we're going to do to start is we're going to trim our fat straight off. And we're just going to look for that line there. There we go. I'm just going to follow it around. Just like that. And then we're just going to clean off any leftover bits. Just like that. So we really want to get all this fat off. So that's pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll trim the rest of that when we come to dicing it, because it's kind of shallows out. We need to bury the knife in there a bit. So instead of making a right mess of it now, we'll do that afterwards. So now we're just going to look at this fat. That little bit of meat's okay. All we're going to do with this is just dice it up. So this steak as well, so as you can see, it's pretty well marbled. It's really good gear. This is from Ranges Valley. It's a nice long grain-fed Black Angus. It's really, really good stuff, and the fat tastes amazing, which is exactly what you want for doing this kind of application. Alrighty, so now it's diced up. Alright, so next job, all of our diced fat straight in a pan. So just like this, and then we're just going to get some water. Now, I always like to cover it probably up to about a third. Just like that. This is just going to help that fat come out. So as you can see, there's just a little bit. And we're going to get that onto a high heat, get it up to a rolling boil, and get that fat rendering out. And then what will happen is the fat will render, and that water's going to boil away, and then all the fat will then basically finish off cooking our crackle. And then we've used every bit of it then. So we've used all the fat. The beef fat we can use to cook with and make some good potatoes. Okay, so now we've got our beef that's been trimmed. I also didn't mention, I took this out of the bag last night, let it age in the fridge unwrapped overnight, so that's why it's got this nice sort of tacky dryness to it. That's going to help intensify the flavour, so it's nice to make sure you do that. You don't have to, but it is nice. So what we're going to do this now is going to put it to one side, dice it right before we need it, so it needs to be as close as we can to when we need it, and that can just sit there, come up to room temperature as well. Room temperature, you want the fat to melt, that's why you want to let it get up to that. So we'll put that to one side. Okay, so our beef's resting to one side. As you can see now, we're starting to, I don't know if you see that, but it's starting to boil. You're starting to see that fat come out of there. So we're just going to keep that ticking along in the background. While we do, we're going to get some, what should we do first? Let's make the egg yolk pate. So for our egg yolk pate, we've got some eggs here. All we've done is really simply just boiled them 8 to 10 minutes. So they're kind of hard boiled. This is a really great one if you don't like raw egg yolk with your beef tartare, which a lot of people don't. So all we're going to do is break the eggs open, and we just want the yolks. Okay guys, so I've got 10 egg yolks in there. So all I'm going to go with now is I've got this really nice smoky honey mustard. So we're just going to whack a little bit of that in. Good amount. Because mustard and beef are best mates. Okay guys, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to chop all our chives and parsley. We're going to put some in the egg yolk pate, some's going to go into the beef. So with our chives, we just want nice, sharp knife, and real nice and thin. If your knife's blunt, it's going to bruise these herbs. You don't want that. It tastes like cut grass. Okay guys, so now that this is chopped, we're just going to take about half of it. Again, the recipe will be in the link. It's about 5 grams. That's going to go straight in there. The rest of this we're going to put to one side, because we're going to use this to put in our beef tartare. Okay, next we're going to chop some parsley. Again, we're going to chop all that we need now, but half of this is going to go for the tartare, and half of it's going to go into the egg yolk pate. So just straight again, and we should run our knife over it. Fine, but not too fine. You want to taste it. Okay, so now the parsley's chopped. So again, it's not too fine. About half that's going to go into our pate, and the rest of it we're going to mix in with our chives, and that's going to go into the tartare. Okay, so back to the egg yolk pate. So now we've got all our herbs and stuff in there. We're going to do a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a good amount of pepper actually. Again, beef and pepper are best mates, touch more salt. And then we're just going to do a dash of our square cow good cow beef rub, only a little bit, and just a splash of water. Now the water is just going to loosen it up so you can get a whisk to it, that's all. So add that as you need it, don't just dump a load of water and you don't want it to be too wet. And then we're pretty much going to just like use a whisk and just mash. Open her up, shake it all out, keep mashing it. And eventually it'll just start breaking everything up. And once it gets like this, you can start to whisk it. You can also put a little bit of olive oil in here if you want, but we've got quite a lot of fat from the beef. Just gonna do a little dash more water into that, just a smidge. Just a little squeeze of lemon juice in there. And the acidity is going to cut the richness of those egg yolks because it can be pretty rich. And this is a great idea, like I say, if you don't like the idea of eating raw egg, which a lot of people don't, this is a really good one. So I'm just going to whisk that now. Alright, so that's pretty much where I want it now. It's nice and smooth. What we can do is just give it a little taste, make sure we're happy with the seasoning. Yep, it tastes good. And we're just going to put this to one side. The mustard's really good in there. If you can't get smoked honey mustard, just use some whole grain, use a bit of Dijon, whatever, it's all good. Okay guys, so the pate's done, ready to go. Now we're just going to make a really simple pickle. If you watch our lamb video, the recipe will be in that video. It's exactly the same. So we've just got red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar, some garlic, some thyme, and some brown sugar. And all we're going to do is bring that to the boil. So we're just going to borrow some space off our little dude there. Bring that to the boil. Be careful with these things, man. They'll take your fingers off. Now, as you can see, that's sliced horribly. So I'm not going to use that. So because this mandolin's hopeless, we're going to do it by hand. Just going to get some nice rings, nice and thin. Take your time. Finish. Just like that's good. We'll pick out any good ones in this terrible piece of machinery. There we go. Okay, so our sugar's dissolved in our pickle now, guys. It's just coming up to the boil. Shallots in. And we're just going to give them just 30 seconds. And then we're going to take them off the heat, let it cool down slowly. Alright guys, so this has just come up to the boil. The shallots are starting to change colour a bit, so we're just going to put that over to one side and let it chill. Get our beef fat back on. Okay guys, so all our water's boiled off our beef now. And you can see all that fat's come out and it's starting to go crispy. So now we're just going to watch it like a hawk. You can turn it down because it gets super dangerous. Be really careful at this point. It's going to pop and splat and spray everywhere. So we're just going to be careful with it. And just let it really finish off. So what we're going to do at this point, we're just going to turn it down because it's almost there. We're going to drop a sprig of thyme in it. It's going to go crazy. So this is just to flavour the fat. We don't want it to burn. I'm just going to get 2 cloves of garlic, bust them up, put those straight in. And this is because we're going to use the fat to dress the beef. It's just to give it a little bit of flavour. Move that around. And that can come off the heat now, we're good. Smells amazing, hey? So we're just gonna let that chill for a minute. At this point, I'm gonna season it just a little bit. Just with some salt, okay? Just a pinch. And just keep that moving around so you can see in there. I don't know if you can see that. But it's gone all nice and brown. It smells like garlic. All right guys, so now this is nearly cooled off. We're just gonna strain off the fat. I'm just gonna set our beef over there. put the fat to one side because we are going to use that. Right, so now we're going to prepare all the garnish to go in and flavour our tartare, which is really, really simple. So we've got some shallots. Probably don't need all that, I'd say. Probably use that much. So I want to go for a nice fine dice on these. Okay, so we're just going to dice. So I reckon with these tiny little shallots, I'd say we'll probably use 2. I think with those, if they were any bigger, we'd probably go 1. You don't want too much. So just, again, nice fine dice. You don't want to dice it and then run your knife over it 5 times, because you start to like bring all the liquid out of the shallot and it's not as nice. You want to have the crunch still in them. Alright, so we've got our 2 shallots in there. We're just going to put our parsley in our chive mix. I'm probably going to put, say, a good half of that in there. And then just some chopped capers. Chopped capers are awesome in stuff like this. They're just really nice and salty, a little bit acidic, go really well in the beef. I'm just going to chop these up. But again, you still want to be able to taste them and you still want to be able to bite on them. Just like that. And we're going to run our knife over a couple of times. Like that. It's perfect. Okay, so you can see we've got our shallots in there, we've got some herbs, we've got our capers, and that's pretty much it. We're going to do some lemon zest and parsley next, and then we'll be chopping the beef up, and that's that. So now we're just going to zest the lemon. Again, do as much or as little as you like, it's up to you. I like quite a lot of lemon because the beef's quite rich because it's got quite a bit of fat. I'll just go for the juice of half a lemon. Okay, so now everything's pretty much in there except for our seasonings, which we'll do once the beef's in. That's just our herbs and our lemon in there. Now we're going to bring the beef back over, get it diced up. Okay guys, so this is the most technical part. We want to make sure that we dice the beef nicely. It needs to be a consistent size, something that's going to eat well, and we want to make sure we get as much of that excess fat and sinew out as we can. Now, you could go through and seam all this out across the sinew line, but if you're doing it at home, you're probably not going to want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're pretty much just going to cut it into steaks the thickness of the size dice that we want, which is about that. Just like that's fine. So then all we're going to do is going to take our little boning knife and we're just going to find a bit of sinew straight across, just like that. That to one side. I'm also going to take this little bit of chain off here, just because it does have a little bit of fat and sinew in between it. We're kind of just seeing that now is just a nice lean bit of meat. And then all we're going to do, cut that in half. Again, it's all about just making it more manageable. Put that to one side. There's quite a bit of excess fat there, I'll take that off. And then I'm just going to go around, try and waste as little as possible. And there you go. And that's what we've wasted, so that's not too bad. Okay, so we've got all our meat now that we want to dice. So all we're going to do, we want like a good chunky dice. You want to be able to taste the beef. Just like that. And with this bit, you really want to be taking your time and get it right, because it's really important to the dish. This is what's going to give it its texture. So just like that's good. And I like to push it down a little bit with my hand so it's nice and even. And then again, just like that. I've got all my beef diced here. You can see it's all nice, consistent size. Oh, we lost a bit. And this is going to go straight in. So that's in down with all our herbs and our shallot and our lemon juice. And you can see there's a real good mix of stuff. You can see a bit of everything in there, and that's what we want. We don't want to go too easy on it. So now we've got to season it and finish it. So we're going to use our square cow good cow beef rub to season. This is great because it's got some good little herbs in there, plenty of salt, plenty of black pepper, and that's what we want. So just season it with a bit of that, and again, season it to taste. And then to dress it, because you can see it kind of looks dry. We want to give it a nice gloss and a bit more flavour. So we're just going to put some of that excess beef fat in there, and this is going to make it super rich and super silky. So there's our beef fat in now. So you can see that's just pulled everything together. And it's got that bit of garlic and a bit of thyme in there. And what will happen now, because that beef's sort of at room temperature, you'll see it starting to firm up that fat and all kind of coagulate together. But the trick is now, don't put it back in the fridge. So do not put this in the fridge, because because it'll all set. That's exactly how we want it. And then again, we're just gonna taste the seasoning. Yeah, it's awesome. With the roasted beef batter, it's great. We're just gonna put a smidge more beef rub. I'm actually gonna put a little bit extra salt, a tiny little bit extra pepper, because it's quite acidic, so we just want to cook that. All right, so we season it a bit with another mix. Now, if you find this does set on you, just leave it on a bench for a little bit. It should warm up, but it's kind of okay. It's just as soon as you eat it, if you're using good beef, that fat's going to melt straight away anyway. All right, guys, so we're into the final stage now. We're just going to take our beef fat. So this has all gone cold now. And you can see it's all gone crispy. So all we're going to do is just, you can hear that, just run the knife over it just once, because you kind of want those chunks to pop. Just like that. That's it. That is all she wrote. Okay, guys, so that's all our components together. We've done our beef, we've got our egg yolk pate, we've got our crispy beef fat, pickled shallots, we've just got a few herbs here, and also I've just fried off a few capers. So these are just crispy fried capers, and all we do is chuck them in the deep fryer for a little bit, just till they won't go crispy. They're really nice as a garnish. With my beef, we'd stop the fat from setting. I've just rested it over a pan of warm water, and you see that's keeping that nice and melted right until you're ready to serve. All right, so now we're just gonna get to plating. So, got our egg yolk pate down. You want quite a bit of this because it's really, really good. And just smear it, just like that. This one side. Now our beef. Straight in the middle. Again, this is great to share if you're having a barbecue. This is a really good little entree. You can also do some nice crusty bread with this, it's really good. Just like that. And then we've got our lovely pickled shallots without the thyme stalks, just all over it. Just like that. And these are really necessary because it's going to be very rich with the egg yolk, with the beef. So we're just going to cover it over with that, like that. And then our crispy beef fat, we're just going to put that all over the top. That's going to give us our texture. Put some nice herbs. This is just the same herbs that we used inside, just as a bit garnish. And then just some crispy capers over the top. And then we'll do just a little black pepper, because black pepper's great with beef. And that's that. Hey guys, so there it is. That's our beef tartare, or our spin on it anyway. We've got the egg yolk pate, some really nice sirloin, crispy beef fat, crispy capers, all seasoned with our School BBQ square cow good cow rub. Really showcasing the fact that you don't just have to use this in barbecue, you can use it as a really nice seasoning as well. So yeah, get stuck into it guys. See you next time.